Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is time to go live. Hey, how we doing? It is Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. I was just told this morning, I made a note yesterday that it was 5/20/25, and today it's 5/21/25. But I didn't put it together in my head. I was just notified that for until next Thursday, I think, next Thursday, the dates are going to be palindromes. So it'll be 5/2/1/25. 5/2/1/25. And tomorrow will be 5/2/1/2 5/2/2/25. 5/2/2/25. Interesting. I didn't put that together. All right. Welcome. Are you up? Are you ready to do this? Did you get your caffeinated beverage? Are we going to make it? Are we going to make it through the day? It's a Wednesday. It's the middle of the week. We're in the second half of the month. Next couple of weeks are going to be busy for me. busy. My son's graduating from high school next Friday. My youngest. So we're going to be out of the K-12 business next Friday. And between now and then, lots of things to do. Busy. How about you? How's your week going so far? Pretty good. The weather's been good in Austin, Texas. We broadcast Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time from Austin, Texas. My name is Keith. We take a look at job posting data, and we look at information news in the tech space, in the larger macroeconomic space, to get a sense of where our industry is going and how we might react to that. As the scroll says, I've been a programmer working in tech for over 30 years. Currently, I manage a coding school, helping people upskill and stay current in their skills in this ever-changing landscape of technology. It is, if you're working in tech, it's a great time to be working in tech. It's not a great time to be unemployed in tech. We will get into that. My LinkedIn QR code is on the screen there. Feel free to connect with me. I've had a number of viewers connect with me on LinkedIn, and I always like to grow my network. It's great to have those conversations. And and the chat is always available if you have any questions about getting a job in tech, working in tech, AI, how it's affecting tech, all of the above. I've got an opinion or two about that, and I'm happy to chase down some rabbit holes with you. If you have any questions, feel free to throw those in. Some of the better streams that we've had were when I was responding to viewer questions. So don't wait for a Q&A section. Just jump in anytime and throw a question in there, and I'll be happy to address it. Let's look at the job data. Excuse me. All right, so I've been collecting this data since 2022. So it goes back a long way. Anything longer than a year is probably not very pertinent in terms of giving us a sense of what's going on. But I've got these three graphs that are updated every day that look at the last 7 days of job postings for web developers, the last 6 months, and the last year. The last week is slowly edging up, but nothing to throw a party about. As we look at the last 6 months, we'll see that the trend line has been down. 6 months ago, Things were considerably higher than where they are now. And since the first of the year, there's been a downward trend from a lot of macroeconomic pressures. It's made it hard for companies to make plans for growth. Growth means hiring. If we look at the last year, we can see that a year ago this time, we were right about the median in terms of the number of job postings. It has been very flat for the last year. And if we look at where we are today, it's off about 15%, maybe 10% from where we were a year ago, which says more about where we were a year ago, more than where we are now. But I have, since the first of the year, been slicing that data up in different ways, including all JavaScript developer jobs, and then cutting off a slice of that for just remote work. And we can see in the last 5 months, 5.5 months, almost 5 months. Yeah, it's been very flat. Coming out of the New Year's, there was a spike, of course, things down after the holidays, but once it sort of peaked there, it's been relatively flat. In terms of remote jobs, there has a little bit of a dip along that line, but roughly flat. But there is a slight downtrend. If we look at that same data broken down by experience level for in-house roles, we see that entry level, mid-level, and senior level roles again follow that trend, but you can see that there is a slight downward pull for those senior level and entry level roles, and a slight upward trend for the mid-level roles. We see the reverse basically for remote work, which is kind of interesting. The trend line is headed down for mid-level remote workers, and it's roughly flat excuse me, for senior and junior level roles. Okay. The other thing I do is spend some time every day on LinkedIn. That's where recruiters hang out. That's where we do research for looking for new jobs. That's where we connect with other people in our industry. But they also have this nice LinkedIn news feed, which gets updated regularly. So it's a good place for us to kind of get a thumb on the pulse of where things are going, both within our industry and then sort of more macro numbers in terms of what the greater business community is dealing with. It's hard to imagine too many sectors in the economy that aren't touched by a tech. Used to be you were a tech company or you were not a tech company 30 years ago, but now everybody's got tech everywhere. Target cuts outlook amid levy woes. Target is the latest retailer to slash its sales outlook amid uncertainty about tariffs and softer discretionary spending. First quarter sales fell almost 3% over a year earlier, the company announced Wednesday. Brian Cornell told reporters that Target is losing ground to rivals in nearly half of its key merchandise categories. The company's step back from its DEI program has proved problematic too, spurring backlash from shoppers. Target also announced the departures of 2 top executives, including one widely considered a possible successor to Cornell. We've talked about this last week because Walmart came out and said that, they got in a big kerfluffle with the administration. They were going to be raising prices, and then the current administration freaked out and made some comments and had a meeting, and then they sort of backed off, but I don't think they really backed off. I think they just made a press release to say that they were kind of playing nice with the administration, but the prices are definitely going up. But Target and other retailers of that like don't have the purchasing power of Walmart, so it's going to be harder for them to keep their prices unaffected by these tariffs. Target had a place for themselves for the anti-Walmart crowd. Walmart for decades now has had a bad reputation about the way that they treat their employees, the way they treat their suppliers, and that's led a certain class of people to, swear off Walmart. I am one of those people. I've probably been into Walmart 3 times in the last 15 years. Like, it's not my go-to, even though there's one 5 minutes away from my house. And by and large, my wife and I, we tend to shop more at Target because it's also nearby and has what we need. Tended to be a better shopping experience too, in terms of just felt better. The aisles were a little bigger. It didn't feel as I just felt that there's a little more polish in its presentation. So we appreciated that. But with a downturn in the economy, which seems imminent, with companies continuing to dribble out layoffs, more people are going to be, carefully looking at what they're spending money on, and that discretionary spending that they're talking about here is going to go down. We've seen this in the automotive sector. People are putting off purchasing new vehicles. People are, because of interest rates, not buying new homes. Got some more information about that today. And that goes all the way down to, what they're paying for at the grocery store. So let's look at this. Amazon issues years-old refunds. Amazon is distributing years-old refunds and apologies after an internal review revealed unresolved reimbursement issues. While its scope and cost remain a mystery, customers are reporting refunds for returns that date back to 2018. The CFO did confirm Austin took a financial hit of $1.1 billion in its first quarter tied to historical customer returns. The disclosure coincides with an ongoing lawsuit against the e-commerce giant concerning refunds for merchandise dropped off at its kiosks. That's interesting. I've got a funny relationship with refunds, and specifically with Amazon, for a couple of reasons. One, I just don't do refunds. Like, my wife will return anything. She is the first person to go back to Target and drop something off and ask for a refund for that $4.30 thing that she bought, which wasn't right. Not me. I can't. I look at the time that it takes to return a thing, and I look at, if I buy something and it's not what I needed or what I wanted, it's a lesson that I should learn from. Not because I know if you follow this stuff, you know where those returns go. By and large, most of those returns go into landfills. Some of them are sold on the secondary market. but a lot of them actually just go in the landfills. And, you just, yeah. The other reason is because I created, in 2005, I created a website to help people get, hey, what's going on? Interesting. Somebody jacked it's been a while since I looked at it. Somebody jacked my domain. I need to look into that. I lost my domain. Well, that's news to me. It's been a while since I even paid attention to that. But I created a website to help people get refunds from Amazon back when they had a policy of giving refunds if the price dropped. They got rid of that policy, so the website is kind of dead. But interesting. Okay. Lowe's weathers tariff storm. So we had an article this week, Monday, I think, about Home Depot being fine, not being hit hard with the tariffs because a majority of their products were actually made in the United States, which is kind of interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that. Let's see what's Lowe's up to. Lowe's is weathering the uncertainty around tariffs better than some of its peers. The retailer on Wednesday stood by its full year forecast, which calls for sales growth compared to 2024. Its quarterly earnings also reflected growing sales among home professionals, which helped offset slowing demand from do-it-yourself customers. CEO Marvin Ellison credited investments in stores and technology for helping Lowe's overcome economic and housing market headwinds. Meanwhile, Target had a tougher quarter and slashed its outlook on Wednesday. Yeah, the story out of Home Depot was that the gardening center was going crazy and doing much better sales than previous years, but their overall sales were down and their outlook was not as good, in part because of those do-it-yourselfers cutting back on some of that, some of those updating that they might do around the house. It's just less expensive to buy a few plants and put them in the yard and feel better about where things are going with your house than redoing a bathroom or redoing flooring or whatever it is, right? Which is interesting. So they're bucking the trend. I used to live at our former house, not too far, just a few minutes away from a Lowe's, and that was my go-to place. And when we upgraded our house 16 years ago, a long time ago now, the Home Depot's closer, so I tend to shop at the Home Depot these days. I don't frankly have a preference. It's all just nails and screws and whatever. It's all kind of a commodity to a certain extent. Although Lowe's had a really fun thing when my kids were young. On Saturdays, they would do kind of little build clinics where you bring your kids in and they had a little room in the back and they'd lead you through a little crafty kind of building exercise, or you'd build a little birdhouse or something like that. That was always fun. We enjoyed that when we were kids, when we had kids. TikTok shop employees await layoffs. Yikes. The U.S. TikTok shop employees are waiting for bad news Wednesday. The app's e-commerce team was told to work from home as the company mulls its difficult decisions, quote unquote, which are widely expected to be layoffs, Bloomberg reports, citing a review of an internal memo. Although TikTok Shop has enjoyed quick growth since its 2023 launch, the app's entire business remains in peril amid the threat of a looming ban. Its e-commerce division faces further complications due to tariffs and the elimination of a tax loophole on low-value shipments. I have never installed or used TikTok, so I wasn't even aware that there was a thing called TikTok Shop. This is all news to me. But yeah, I mean, if it's kind of just their version of Shein or what's that other low cost app where they sell a bunch of Chinese goods. Yeah, all those they're getting hit pretty hard. And of course TikTok has that, looming deadline on, are they going to be shut down or not. So lots of difficult decisions to make over there for sure. But it was interesting for them. Generally speaking, it's been my experience working in tech for 30 years that if a company is going to do layoffs, or if they're going to shut down a division, or if they're going to do any of that kind of stuff, they don't give you any notice. It's in their best interest to keep, that information close to the vest. Because, as an employer, if you're a small employer and you're going through some rough times and you've got kind of a personal relationship with your 20 employees and you want to be a good employer and do the right thing by them, you go like, look, I don't know if this thing's going to last another 30, 40 days. If you can find another place, like I'll give you the runway, I'll give you the best, recommendation. I'll help you find a job. Let's get moving on this to help ease that transition for your employees. You can kind of get away with that. But if you're a large corporation, especially one that's publicly traded, any of that kind of signaling can affect your stock price, which can exacerbate other things that you're trying to do to save the business. If you give notice that, one of your 10,000, 30,000, 70,000 employees is going to be laid off, there's a chance that one of those people are going to go crazy and, decide to burn the place down on the way out the door. And they could be stealing a bunch of data and wreaking all kinds of havoc in your business on their way out the door, because you're laying them off. Lots of reasons why large companies don't really give you a hint about that. So that part of this is really kind of interesting. Work from home as the company mulls over different decisions. I mean, it's not like they didn't know. Like if you work at TikTok, you've known for 6 months at least that the hammer could drop for sure. And probably most people who had options have left already, frankly. But it's interesting. It is interesting. Mortgage demand dips as rates rise. Mortgage applications dropped 5.1% last week compared to the week prior as interest rates increased to their highest level since February. That's according to data from Mortgage Bankers Association, whose chief economist noted that investors are concerned about rising inflation and the impact of debt. There are more home listings on the market than just a few months ago, but the usually busy spring season has slowed due to elevated interest rates and concerns about the economy. Yeah. Home sales are kind of a slow moving boat that needs to be turned. Interest rates increased to 6.92% from 6.86%. That's almost as high as it was when I bought my first home in 1998, 1997. Bought our first home in 1997. We paid 7.25% on our mortgage. But a lot of that had to do with we had horrible credit at the time, my wife and I. But yeah, if you have not lived through that, like because I lived through that and because I had a mortgage for 10 years at that higher interest rate, I'm like, it's fine. The most important thing is you're paying it off early. And whether that interest rate is 4% or 7%, if you pay it off 10 years early, you're going to save a ton of money, right? So the secret is to not, buy a house bigger than you need, not, stress your finances. If you can pay $1,500 a month, try and get a house it's $1,200 a month, and put another $300 on there and get that thing paid off quick. relatively quick, right? But the average rate for a 30-year fixed mortgage with conforming loans, $800,000 or less increased. $800,000 or less. Yeah. I can't imagine this house that I'm in right now. We paid $224 16 years ago. It's valued at $550, $600, depending. And the idea of spending almost $1 million for a home seems crazy to me. Just seems crazy to me. If I had $1 million in the bank, I wouldn't buy a house for $1 million. That is just bonkers to me. But I'm showing my age. That's the thing. You get used to this stuff, right? You get used to low interest rates and getting interest rates of 3%, 4% for years, and an interest rate that's tickling 7%. And you're like, that's outrageous. I'm not going to buy a house. The reality is, like, again, the difference doesn't raise your overall monthly payment that much. But over a 30-year mortgage, it certainly adds up. That's why you got to pay it off. All right. I am broadcasting from Austin, Texas. I saw another story similar to this week. Austin loses its tech sector swagger. Tech talent is fleeing Austin, Texas about as quickly as it arrived. 5 years ago, Austin attracted California companies with the promise of lower taxes and better quality of life. But new Signal data shows that the last year, big tech employment in Austin dipped 1.6%, and startup employment fell 4.9%. Signifier's head of research says a combination of factors explain the shift, including return to office mandates and centralization of the booming artificial intelligence industry in California's Silicon Valley. I think that all kind of makes sense. We did get a huge influx. It doesn't feel like that from my point of view. When I'm going to meetups, when I'm going to Capital Factory or other places like that, it's always popping. We had a pretty big South by Southwest this year. Having said that, one of the draws to Austin and its tech scene has been South by Southwest. And if I had to make a prognostication about the tech sector in Austin, I would say it would be dipping myself, but primarily because South by Southwest is not going to be the same moving on. It got bought by another company. They pulled the management in the last month from from the people who grew it to what it is. And now they have kind of a part-time CEO who's going to be in Austin a week, a month, or something like that, but mainly just hang out in California. Like, you don't have boots on the ground 24/7. I don't see this thing growing. I think it's just a private equity firm which is going to milk it, and yeah, I think the long term, I don't think South by Southwest is going to grow. I think it's going to shrink. They've got other headwinds because they lost the Civic Center, the convention center this year. They won't have access to it next year, so that was going to affect it anyway. So I don't know. For me, it doesn't really matter. But it's interesting. All right, we done did it. Again, my name is Keith. If you're joining the stream late, I broadcast Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time from Austin, Texas. And we talk about what goes on in the world of tech, but it's really just an excuse to kind of hang out. If you are in the job market, one of the hardest things about looking for a job is staying consistent, right? Is getting up every morning, even though you're throwing these job applications out by the dozens into the void and not getting anything back for weeks at a time, it's hard. Just hard. Drains you. And so I created a stream as just a place to kind of come hang out. It's just a consistent habit. Get up in the morning, you turn me on, you get a caffeinated beverage, and you just get those job applications out every day, Monday through Friday. If you know anybody who is in the job market and could use that, please feel free to share, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn with the QR code that's on the screen. I will be back in 23 hours and 30 minutes, and we're going to do this all over again as we slide into the second half of May as things start to heat up around the country. And summer is imminent. Okay, well, have a great